everybody. Welcome to Scripting the Book. And we are talking today about Bridgerton Season 2 and the Viscount Who Loved Me. We have our regular guest with us, and we have a special guest who will be joining us in just a minute. So we're going to go around, starting with Ben, go clockwise around to Natalie. And Natalie will also be with us in just a moment. If she's not still listening, she might still be on the mic. So go ahead and start us off, Ben.
Sure. I'm Ben Pick. I do weekly videos about writing called Running to Write, where I go into my writing process and just give questionable recommendations through running metaphors. And this past week, I just had my 1-year anniversary live episode. So if you haven't watched it, it's a lot of fun. It's all about writing while maintaining your relationships. So how do you write and not annoy the other important people in your life?
Nice. And my name is Morgan Lee. I have a YouTube channel with the same name, Morgan Lee. Currently, right now, I'm streaming every day in April for Camp Nano, and eventually in May, I'll return to posting 2 times a week. And yeah, that's it. That's me.
Hello, everyone. I am Natalie Locke. Links are down below. I am just about on every single platform, at least on a weekly basis, some more than others. And today I am streaming constantly.
Yes.
Just about. I will have a break after this stream, and then I'll stream again tonight on Twitch at 7 p.m. But yeah. I'm also making lunch because I realize I haven't eaten yet, and I don't want to be at the end of this stream at 2 o'clock Eastern to be like, oh, hey, this hasn't happened yet.
Yeah, I just did that. I was supposed to take a break to eat because I also have been streaming all morning, but I forgot. But I've got a snack that's just out of arm's reach right there. I'm gonna dip out of the camera just to grab it.
It's fine. I'm sure we'll get on a talking spree at some point. So I'm gonna grab that food real quick, and I'm assuming we're gonna talk about initial.
Yeah, we're gonna talk about the book first. And I was telling everybody backstage, it's gonna be mild spoilers, so don't worry if you blurt something out that happened in the movie while we're talking about the book. They're here. Hopefully they've read everything and watched everything. So we'll do the book discussion first, movie discussion, and then go ham.
Yeah. Or they're like me, and where I will totally binge something and that someone totally spoiled everything for me, but it's not spoiling because I feel like there's something different when you watch it. You know, you could tell me the person lives at the end. I'll be like, sweet. And I'll still go, oh my God, are they going to be okay?
Yeah.
Now, you said they lived. You didn't say if they're going to have all appendages.
This is true. And I'm Nia, the Vixen of Fiction. You are here on my channel. I host this fantastic show with these great people. And I also host AuthorTubers React and Writers Wrap Up. So you can check out any of those. Everything is linked below. I'm a writer of historical fiction, sci-fi, and fantasy, and I like talking about all things books. So join me anytime. I occasionally will do a live stream. There are some months when I have a regular schedule. Nano months are not those months. There's no regular schedule. I will hop on with people like Morgan.
The schedule is chaos.
So Zara is going to be joining us in just a few minutes. Oh, speaking, see, she must have heard.
Hi.
Oh, we got a Riley sighting too.
I had to give her her antibiotic, and she's been giving my mom hell about taking it in any form, and I got it like that. So my mom's like, I'm bringing Riley to you. You're going to do it. I was like, I don't know what you think I do that you don't do. And she's like, I don't care. You have the magic touch.
I think you're maybe the strict one.
I do think it's that where she's like, oh, Sarah's giving me something. This is special. And I'm like, it's cheese with your medicine.
It's the same thing.
And it's always cheese with your medicine in it. But it tricks her into doing it. I can't complain. So
yeah, I've given up. I just wrapped the medicine for my dog in prosciutto.
Yeah, I
Hey,
do
that's how I
ham.
trick myself.
We
Yeah.
haven't spoiled her that much when it comes to food. It's more just like the amount. But I think that's also limited because we know that she has such a sensitive stomach. So my mom would be like, here are all like these hypo treats that she's okay with. I was like, not if you give her that many. So yeah. Anyway.
Yes. Wrap it in chocolate for me.
Anyway, should I do a quick intro or do we want to just roll in? Okay. Hi, Riley. She's up on my couch in her normal spot. Anyway, my name is Zara Hoffman. I'm the self-published author of 6 books, a young adult paranormal romance trilogy and a new adult sci-fi romance trilogy. I am an author tuber who has become basically just a writing streamer. Hopefully that will change going forward because I have a lot of video ideas. I just need to make them. And I am the co-creator and co-host of the Writish podcast with fellow author tuber Kelly Wright. And if you are a listener, downloading the episodes really helps us because it registers the number. And then once you've listened to it, your device should remove it. So you don't have to like upgrade your storage on any device. Yeah, and that's mostly it. I'm also a dog. I'm like the sibling / co-parent of my dog. And she's a complete diva. So if I'm running off camera at any point during the stream, it's because of her.
Yeah, I think we all understand we got the kids or we've got the pets. So
I mean, you both have kids and pets.
Yeah.
So I don't know why you did that to yourself, but
no, but nothing surprises me anymore.
Because I didn't learn.
Yep.
I got
Exactly.
toddlers, and then I was like, let me get something that will act like a toddler for the rest of its life.
Literally, that's my kids were like, oh, Mom, we're all about to leave the house. So what you need is a pet. Oh, so I have a toddler for forever. Shannon's here. Hello. Shannon says, I haven't read the book yet, only seen the TV show, so I'll just be listening in for the most part. We're going to do book discussion first, then movie, then we're going to go ham on all of it. But there will be mild spoilers as we're talking about the book or the movie. So just so that you know it, if you're watching on the replay, so that you know it will be segmented out, book, movie, all. They're mild spoilers warning because we can't be responsible for all of the things that we have to say.
it's a lot.
Is here. Ben and I were hanging out in the chat before we started. Hello, Barrett. Don't worry, we're all late today. It's that day in the AutoTube community where everything is happening.
Well, it's like whenever it's towards the end or even the middle of a 24 write-a-thon, we're all like, even if we didn't make all of the streams, which I absolutely did not, we all feel a little bit hungover because we're all like trying to make multiple streams.
Yeah, we want to like support everybody. So We've been everywhere. It's been fun though. I'm going to sleep well tonight, I think. I hope. Aw, thanks. You guys are great. So are you ready to get into it? Let's
just rip the Band-Aid off.
Yes. What did you think about the book? I will go last. We will start with Zara and everybody go around or pop in. Give your thoughts. What do you think about the book?
I liked it. I liked it better than The Duke and I. I know that people think that this is like their favorite book in the whole series. Don't agree with that, but I do love the story. Enemies to Lovers is like something I just eat up, which I understand The Duke and I was also, but it just felt like they get married early in The Duke and I, and here there's a more of a traditional romance arc where it's like it's like halfway point they start to be like, maybe I like the person. And then at the end is like when they come together as a couple or endish, whatever. So yeah.
Yeah, I also like the book too. I agree that it was better than the first book. The characters were better developed, and there wasn't, I'll put it nicely, a controversial scene in the second book. And yeah, I can dive. I like we said, we're trying to avoid spoilers, so I can dive into the differences between the book and the show later. But it is really interesting where they diverge. So
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm like holding myself back. I'm like,
Yeah.
you gotta wait to the proper section.
Yeah,
Book was
it's
good.
it's very interesting where it does diverge. So I can't wait to talk about that. Morgan, do you want to tell us what your thoughts on the book were?
Yeah, so I only finished half of the book, unfortunately. But I was
Are you liking it, or is
Yes.
it a time thing?
It's a time thing. So yes, I do like the book and I will finish it. And I didn't read Duke and I, but I do enjoy the book. I guess I won't talk about the show, but like I did enjoy the book. I thought that it's good so far. So that's all I can say.
Awesome. How about you, Natalie?
Well, now I'm going to throw a wrench in this.
Uh-oh.
I like Duke and I better than this book. This book, there was times. No, I will say the characters were developed because I was doing the Natalie thing of where I yell at the characters because I just found them so immature. Like the little sister was so naive and just like, oh yeah, it's cool, no problem. I'm like, are you? But I did like the explanation. I did like the explanation of why she felt like it was pressure on her, the little sister.
Mm-hmm.
And then so many times that Anthony did things, I'm like, huh, funny when the shoe is on the other foot. Interesting how that occurs. Like, I was like mad at him because of the way he was in the first book. And I'm like,
with Daphne.
Well,
yeah.
I have a lot, like in the show, I think they did that very well. Yeah,
Mhm.
I'll save the rest of that for the show segment.
Yeah, but like honestly, I just it didn't seem completely believable. I felt like I was able to write it because this is the first time that I read the book before the show, whereas Duke and I watched the show and then read the book and then watched the show again. So I don't know if that had a factor in it, but I just felt it was at times predictable, and not predictable in like the good fun way, but like saw that coming. All right, what's next situation. And
it wasn't perfect. I don't think any of the books are perfect.
It made me feel like I was reading a young adult versus where I would call the first one adult. And I think maybe that's what it was. I felt it was immature.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. I feel like this of the books that I've read so far, I've read the first 4. This is one of my 2 favorites. And I go back and forth between this one and the next one. And for this one, I like that it's kind of like enemies to lovers, but not in a way that is like abusive. You know, it's like this is their circumstance, and the fact that they get under each other's skin because they're so much alike. And in the book, you're really seeing a lot of the parallels because we're going into detail about what Kate has been through. And
but Anthony was he was still a rake.
He was yeah.
I mean, they're all.
That's just how they were.
In the book, he was still a rake.
In the book, they say it in season 1. The mom is like, I fully subscribe to the idea that reformed rakes make the best husbands. And there's another historical romance series called The Effingtons. I don't remember the author of that, which is bad. But they say that like straight up. So that's kind of a staple of the historical romance genre.
It is.
As is in almost every book. Not this one, surprisingly, but definitely in the next one, where like the female heroine is like the subject of an attack at some point, and normally the book description is like hiding her secret. I was like, okay, that's code for I'm gonna get upset at a certain point when it comes out. So warning for the 3rd book.
Yeah, and that's why this one, even though Okay, so the next book, I'm just going to say it's more of a Cinderella story. This one is more of a Taming of the Shrew story. So
Yes.
I like a Cinderella story. So I think that's why the next book tends to sometimes nudge itself in my favorite.
What would you call the first one?
You know,
Friends to Lovers.
yeah, just Friends to Lovers. I don't know if
I don't know why this blanked on me. Fake dating. It's obviously a fake dating.
Oh yeah, it's a fake dating.
Yeah.
I do like a fake dating one also, but I don't know. I just reading them and in book. I don't know, and watching it. I just liked season 2, and I like this one better. Those, I don't know. I think that those two are two of my favorites. And Enemies to Lovers done right, where it's not a toxic person and you're trying to make me like this super toxic person when I don't. When they're really toxic, I just don't like them. I don't want them with the other person. I'm just like, no, you're not. I'm not. I can't buy in.
You've dug your hole too deep. I don't want to see you get
and
out
because
of it.
the rake trope is normal for this time period, and I'm someone who likes historical fiction, I expect it. The girl's gonna know nothing, and the guy's gonna have been all over the place.
Have been sleeping around because they're allowed to, and that's what's expected of them.
Mm-hmm. In fact, a Colin is rare. Especially in romance novel, where Colin like had this fantastical, oh gosh, you know what? Not in this. So we'll get to that when we talk about the show. But I'll just say that those Colin types are rare, and you'll hear about him in book 4.
Season 1, Anthony does say to him, like, did you compromise the girl? And he's like, no. And he's like, okay, well then you're just crazy, and that's because I expose you to like this enough.
Exactly.
When you came back from school or something is what he says.
Yep. So Colin is more naive. So we have Anthony, who's the eldest, and he is the rakiest of the siblings. So, but this is a trope that is in a lot of historical fiction. So it comes with the territory when I read it. I'm not like, oh, he's all over the place and she knows nothing. That's like every single book, you know? So go ahead, Ben.
I was going to say, at the same time, that this book at least does a really good job of explaining why and what brought him into that mindset. So you kind of understand why he could think that. And yeah.
I have thoughts about how they did it in the show. I like how they did it in the book.
Yeah.
His motivation in the book.
Yeah, it was much more detailed. And then with the paralleling it with Kate, it's like we see how much they're like I liked it the whole time. I'm just like, stop arguing, you two, and kiss. Even though in the book there were times when he seemed a little both mean, but it was more because he was I think it came across as his frustration over situations. And so that there were times where I was like, okay, Anthony, calm down, watch the attitude. But it was always understandable.
In mind, but I want to talk about it like during the adaptation part
to compare them
right now.
Okay, perfect.
But as we're saying that, I'm like, oh, I have this one scene in mind.
Yeah, but like Kate's impression of him is completely based on everything that Lady Whistledown has been saying. And so, of course, she's like, I want my sister to marry a guy that she is going to be able to fall in love with and who's going to love her back.
And he's not going to cheat on her and make my sister miserable, who like will just take it because that's the type of person she is.
And Edwina is this very naive character, and in the book she's meant to be that way. She's coming out. Mary would have waited a year to bring her out, but that would have made Kate too old. So Kate's 21. So if she thinks that if she waits another year, Kate's gonna be too old.
I thought Kate was 23 in the book, and then they bumped her to 26 in the.
Oh, I thought it was 21.
I thought she's 27 in the show.
Yeah,
she's 26 in the show, 23 in the book.
How old, Morgan?
26 in the show, 21 in the book.
Okay, yeah, I don't know why I added an extra year to the show, but
I don't know where I got 23 now.
So something that like strikes me is that in the show, I don't remember if they did in the Duke and I the book, but Lady Bridgerton is delaying Eloise coming out, and it's also Daphne's first season. And so we have all these instances where like multiple siblings are being out at the same time, whereas in Pride and Prejudice, Lady Catherine de Bourgh is like, you're all out at the same time. Like, what happened to one person getting married first before you let the others out?
And I think that's
like, are they all Regency? I can't remember when Jane Austen's.
Yeah, they're the early 1800s. It's all roughly that same time period. Ideally, you want to have one out at a time, but you also don't want the younger one to wait too long because the older one's it's not happening with the older one. So I think that Lady Featherington having all of her daughters out at the same time, except for in the book she has a younger one, is not ideal, because then it starts looking like, well, what's wrong with her girls? You know, that they're all out and nobody's married yet. And when you have a gap, you can do one at a time. So you can do Daphne first, then good, Daphne's squared away. Now let's do Eloise.
Which is how it's in like the book, and then in the show they kind of do it too, but for a different reason.
Exactly. So that was okay with me. And the story
Shannon said that so the actress who plays Kate is 27 in real life. So that's
okay. Probably we're getting some real life ages mixed up with.
I swore I heard her say like, "Oh, I'm 7 and 20," when Lady Danbury asks her, but I obviously just combined. My bad.
Yes, I like this too. I like it when she just doesn't just fall for him. So he's gotta work for it, and I like the way that they in the book they actually have to get married. So and everyone can see it. It seems like everyone can see it. Colin is like, somehow Colin knows that she's going to be able to like play right along.
That scene is so funny in the book.
From the first time Colin meets her, he totally sets her and her brother up to be like, he's like, oh yeah, I'm totally going to do this.
And Anthony very quickly catches on to his brother, but then it's later when they're alone and Kate's like, what was that about? And he's like, my brother is being basically a little shit.
And she's like, I got you. And so the same thing when they end up going to, what's the name of the house?
Aubrey Hall.
Aubrey Hall. So they go to Aubrey Hall, and it's just like, Kate's like, I'm all in for this sporting stuff. Let's go.
I feel like the book is very Pride and Prejudice-y, which is probably why I like it so much. But like in the book, it's so clear the parallels between the characters. Whereas I feel like in Pride and Prejudice, the book, like it's not just Elizabeth and Darcy who don't understand that they have a common ground on things. It's also the reader. Whereas in the book and the Netflix of the Viscount Who Loved Me, like the reader, the viewer, whatever, we're like, oh no, like there's a parallel. You two are in complete denial, but people around you can see.
Yep, exactly.
In the book, Edwina can see.
Yeah, Edwina can see. And this is kind of where I don't mind Edwina's naivety, because when things go down, which is hilarious. Okay, so this was kind of funny, the way that they are in Aubrey Hall. So Kate and Anthony technically like halfway through the book get together, but they don't know that they're in love yet, right? So so they're at Aubrey Hall, and they have the game, and she gets the mallet of death, which is Anthony's mallet, and everybody's having a good time. And you don't, it's like everyone can see it. I think Colin is the one who's trying to like almost like he's just like playing with them, like you know. So
I think in the show Benedict is more the one who's playing with them. They're trying to set him up. But like, yeah, Colin is like, obviously he's older than Gregory, but beyond that, he's kind of acting like the youngest sibling.
Yeah, he's
youngest brother, stirring up trouble for his older oldest, not even just older, oldest brother.
Yeah, so all of that to me, I felt like that was super just cute. And so when the bee sting happens, after everybody comes, so in the book, this is how things go down. Kate gets stung by a bee. And so because we already are getting a lot of backstory about Kate's background and Antony's background, so this is all building up to this moment where Kate gets stung by a bee on her chest.
Before you say that, like,
okay, go ahead.
Anthony is convinced that he's going to die early because his father did, and as we all know, it was due to a bee sting. So like he freaks out in the show, but like he is freaking out in the book, even more so. In my opinion.
It's to ridiculous levels, and so.
It's so cringe.
I know. This is what I was talking about, the immaturity.
For me. Well, like he was traumatized. Like,
and I totally understand it, but the delivery.
Yeah.
Well, and that's the big thing too, is that in the books everyone is aged down. So he was 8 years old, I think, when he was with his father, or when his father died, and I don't think he was even there, right?
No, I thought he had like just come back from school or something.
Yeah,
but he wasn't there when his father was
stung.
He
wasn't there when it actually
So for him it was just like randomly this bee has killed his dad. He doesn't, it's like a lack of understanding of
and he doesn't even see it happen in the book. So to him it's like this amorphous scary thing that struck down his father.
So it's in the book it's just so amped up, his reaction to it, and he just like he can't control himself. She's like literally trying to calm him down, and he's like got his head attached to her chest.
He's like I have to suck out the venom. It's like, dude, like, you
don't need to do that.
And they get caught in that position.
Oh, and though I will say the character of Miss Featherington is on point. Like, I do like the exchange where Anthony is like, you should walk somewhere else. And he's like, get her out of here. Get Miss Featherington.
It's Lady Bridgerton, Lady Mary.
Yes, and
Lady Featherington.
Yeah.
And, they're all appalled because it's like, thing.
Like his
but
he looks like a suckling baby.
Like clearly ready to start gossiping, and both the other mothers and Anthony are like, do not say a word, like zip it. We will know if you're the one who blabs.
We're not saying anything. So this is why they have to get together, but all of the understanding about their frustration is not understood yet. Like, what is it that about this person? So but they both have feelings for each other and they both know it, but Anthony thinks that he's going to die, so he's desperately does not want Kate to fall in love with him, and he doesn't want to fall in love with her because he's like, I'm gonna die. I'm not gonna live much past 30. What would be the point? She's gonna be miserable. I
like, because it's a very selfless, like, I don't want to leave behind a grieving, heartbroken wife, versus in the show it's like, oh, I was heartbroken and like love is off the table, which like I get, and that's pretty common in like a lot of romance, not just historical romance. But I was like, but you had such a good thing in the book. Yes,
this part, well, minus the sucking of the venom, that was a little ridiculous.
I mean, his motivation,
but everything else, that could have stayed, and I would have been happy. But I mean, it worked for the book. You're reading it, and even reading it, I'm like, this is ridiculous. Yeah, but this is a ridiculous.
It's like absurd in the original meaning of the word. You're like, this is kind of absurd.
And Edwina is okay with it. She's like, whatever. I wasn't that into him anyway.
He's like, I wanted a scholar type anyway. And like, well, he's very nice and very rich. Like, I'm okay not.
She was like, I just want to marry for love and everything.
Yeah.
She wasn't going for a title, which I'm like, I understood the reason of like, she wanted to get to know someone, not just go for a title.
But also in the book, I feel like, yes, while Kate is definitely meddling and like steering her sister one way or the other, she does tell Kate, like, I want someone intelligent. I want like a scholar type. And Kate understands that. So it's not throughout the whole thing, Kate's like, this is what you want. And Edwina's like, okay. Like, for as naive as she is, she does have preferences that are expressed and mostly respected in the book, which I liked a lot.
Yeah.
And in the book, Edwina doesn't really interact as much with Antony. I mean, they weren't, well, we can go to that later, but I did want to bring up one of my favorite lines from the book, which was, I'm going to paraphrase it because I don't have it written down. I wasn't smart enough to do that in advance. But it was like how, you know, one of the most eligible bachelors was brought down by a bee.
Yeah.
Yep. Exactly. It's just this innocuous.
That was Lady Whistledown, I think.
Yeah,
right?
I think it was Lady Whistledown.
Or was it the narration?
I think it was the narration, maybe.
Because that
because it wasn't Lady Whistledown said something as like a foot, but and it later came out what happened, but it was like so long after the fact, no one really cared because they were married.
Yeah. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
Anybody got any more thoughts on the POV and the world building and the story flow? What I'll say is for the POV for the book, because it's so much more limited. We are only getting the tidbits from the other siblings, but the focus really is on Kate and Antony, which is why I think we get so much Kate backstory, which I love so
did enjoy that
much. Yeah, the parts where she is stressing out about the storm. Beautiful. I loved it.
I like that backstory, and I could understand the psychology of it, of her stress. But the thing is, going back to how I feel, and maybe immaturity is not the word, but it's the one I keep coming back to, is the library scene of her like the freak out of them both is just, to me, over the top.
Well, like,
it comes across
immature, but when you're traumatized, your trauma reaction is frozen at the age that you experienced it. So, like, my trauma reaction is when I'm 13, and I can be like, I am now 25, and this is like the situation I'm in. Like, even knowing all of that stuff, there's still no guarantee that you can pull yourself out of it.
Yeah.
Like, I get that it is immature, but also, like, that's realistic.
Yeah.
But it can be annoying as a reader. I understand.
Yeah. And we've seen it with, I live in an area where there are a lot of, like, veterans that have PTSD. And, like, we always have to say, be mindful when you set off fireworks. Or even for the 4th of July, pets as well. But the reaction, it really does. It's like, it could be the most seemingly innocuous thing, but it will take them back to that moment. And also regular stress can impact how you react when the thing happens. So she's already stressed out. This whole situation already has her stressed out. She's probably, it
amplifies things. It also,
amplifies.
And it's just, I guess it's because for me, my reaction is usually like a breakdown crying when I hit that level of trauma, and something triggers me, and I'm shaking and I'm crying and stuff like that. Whereas her approach is, and even Anthony's, is like they get tunnel vision and they are like fixated on something and not paying attention to what's going on around them and stuff. And I think so maybe it's because not realizing that there are multiple aspects of trauma response. And so that's probably why I didn't receive the delivery of it through the book as well.
Yeah.
But
and
also,
that's
it's over the top.
Yeah. And sometimes that's why I giggle, like, because for me, my trauma response is shut down. Like, I almost go blank and like nothing. Like I'm good.
Well, and there's trauma response, and then there's like anxiety attack. For me, an anxiety attack is I had this happen once, and I never want to go back to it. But my mother ended up picking me up from school, and she was trying to be nice. She was like, "Hey, do you want to eat somewhere? We can stop by." Like, trying to be nice, going, "Hey, let's get some fast food." And I was like, "I don't know." She's like, "Well, do you want something sweet?" I don't know. Like, I could not make a decision. I was incapable. I did not know, and it just that was my response during that anxiety.
Yeah. So whenever someone's going through it, I'm like, I don't know, because mine is complete shutdown. So whatever you tell
Everyone
me
has
yours
a
is,
different reaction.
I'm just gonna go with it. Yep.
Yeah.
I just go with it. I'm like, oh, this is how they're reacting. That's a lot. But if that's what it is, I'm like, I'm just gonna go with it, because
back to the
mine
story.
Is not normal.
Back to the story, the POV was showing trauma. Like, we recognized the trauma.
Yep.
Cold.
So it was done.
Yeah, good
I
job.
thought it was done. Like, you knew what was going on. So for me, it worked. And I was like, okay,
I could understand the logic. It was just the execution of, or the physical display of the stress.
I mean, it's uncomfortable. And if it's also like not something that you're aware of could happen, like it can be like a lot, which is how like I always feel when I see people like sobbing on camera, because like obviously I know people ugly cry, but like even when I've like broken down crying, like I never make those noises. But for me, like it's always like really hard,
like the hyperventilating,
well, no, not the hyperventilating, but like when they sound like they're obviously crying, but like part of me is like it sounds like they're maybe laughing or something, the vocalization or whatever. And so like that always makes me uncomfortable. But I think with like growing up with my mom as a therapist, and then also like my amazing therapist who's like, this is your trauma response. It's normal because it's a trauma response, but it's different than other people's who are also normal because it's a trauma response. And like, we're just going to work with what you have.
Yep. I have a daughter who nervous laughs, and it's like for real. Like, I had heard about nervous laughing, but I didn't know it until she was doing it. And I'm like, and at first we would be like, stop laughing. And she's like, I'm not. And she just keep doing it. And we're like, okay. And then every time, and it started probably when she was 3 or 4. I don't know why, but when she gets something stresses her out and she can't fix it and she's upset or really hurt, especially when she's hurt. I think it was when she got hurt and she was nervous laughing that and she was like 3 or 4, that we realized, oh, this girl nervous laughs. She's not laughing. And so we kind of had to like tell people at school, if something happens and she starts laughing and can't stop, she's not okay. That she's not really laughing. So yeah, you learn that people are very, very different in these ways. So I learned to go with it if someone writes something a certain way. Because if I wrote the way that I express trauma or anxiety in a book, people would be like, oh, this character has no personality. What is going on? You know what I mean? I'd have to explain, this is why she's not talking. This is why she's like zoning out and over here. It's because I'd have to explain it. This is how she processes.
Like I wrote it in my Stellar Blood trilogy, and she's very much like, I don't have time to deal with this. Like, I have other things to worry about.
Like she tries to ignore the issue, and
and that was me for a very long time. And then obviously like it affects her, and like she can't control that because she's not trying to deal with it at all. But if people
saw that's how it comes to the surface when you're not ready.
Yeah, obviously people reading it would be like, obviously she should be dealing with this. And it's like, yeah, but not everyone is like ready to immediately get the help and do the work that they need to do to get better.
Yeah, my issue was always jumping over the emotional tackling, and I would just go straight to logical, and the emotional would build up, and eventually it would just overflow. And that's when I would have to take a mental health day from work or something. Sometimes more than a day.
Absolutely. So in that aspect, that fact that we get to see all of this build up for Kate and Anthony, it just works for me. And also understanding the process. So they end up having to get married because of this scandalous thing that happens. And I love the relationship between Kate, Edwina, Mary, and their little corgi. Like, this was just the most
Newton was the best character.
Newton wins.
They downsized Newton's role in the show, and I'm like, come on, you can't have him in the trailer and have him like barely be there.
I know.
Oh, because if Newton wasn't in the trailer, the fans, I think, were gonna go nuts.
It's like in Moana, the pig was.
Oh my god! Like, who cares about Hey Hey? It should have been Pua who went on that journey. I'm still bitter about that.
You should be. Yes.
Well, like, I understand people would be mad if Newton wasn't in the trailer, but then everyone would be so happy to see him in the show versus being like,
Yeah.
oh, he's in the trailer. So, like, he's, you know, he's there. Especially when she's like, oh, he's a great judge of character. And then he, like, barks at Anthony once. And it's like, oh, so he's, like, going to be there. Like, can I say COCK blocking?
Yeah.
Like, cock blocking Anthony. And then, like, he's barely there in the show, which I know we're not there yet, but I was just like,
well,
yeah.
And he was also a great conversation piece. Wait, I'm kind of jumping into a.
In the book, he was a
great conversation.
Like the conversation between
relationship
Anthony and Kate.
Yes.
Like they talked about it because they lost Newton. And they're searching for him and stuff like that, and then
it leads to falling into water.
Exactly. So like that to me, there was a lot of buildup of their characters in that moment, and then also having that big, like, hey, build up, and then Anthony goes back to his old ways.
But then also the hilarious thing is that at the end of the book, after they're married and they're doing another Pall Mall game, like Newton grabs the ball and runs away. And he's like, that's your dog. And she's like, your dog too by marriage. And he's like, I ain't agree to that. Like this really cute bickering thing. And it's like, oh, you're still you.
Which I love that. I love that they continue the cute bicker stuff. Like,
I would have been unhappy if they hadn't. But it's like, it's around Newton again.
Yeah, because I know my husband and I, we make comments to each other sometimes in public, and people are like, "Oh my God, are they okay?" And it's like, no, this is us.
Like we're joking. It's not serious.
It's like it's our language. Don't worry yourself about it.
So but yeah, the POVs. I mean, I like that the show does multiple POVs, and I like that the books are otherwise the books would be way too long.
Yeah.
I like the books that focus on the characters and their backstories. And I thought the backstories were developed and built that world. The psychology, physics of it made sense.
I think they all, like in the show and in the book, like the POV world building and story flow are all very linked, because with the POVs, you're much more narrowed, which means the world building isn't like as broad, but the story flow is much more like linear versus like in the show you're having all these detours in comparison to like the main couple of of that season.
Well, that's why it takes longer to watch the show than it does to read the book.
And the world building is happening book by book, so it's like we're getting this limited POV in book one, but there's a little bit of world building. We're starting to learn who all the characters are, even though we don't know details about them. Then we carry that over to the next book. So, and then it builds on that. And then the next book will build on that. So it's more gradual.
In the books, you really only know like the characters as they interact with that main couple. And then going forward, you're like, oh, this is how they interacted with those people. And now it's their turn. Like, how are they going to interact? Like when they're the ones falling in love, and like you just keep moving forward. Whereas in the show, like you see them interacting like just as a family. You know?
All together. Any more thoughts on this? Because we're getting ready to go into the series. You guys ready? All right. So, what did you think of the Netflix series? Did it hold its own?
Yes.
Yes.
Short answer.
Short answer for me too is yes. Sarah, that
also yes.
And Ben.
I enjoyed it. I thought that it diverged completely from the book at a certain point, and they both sort of became their own work, but they came together at the end.
Yes.
They diverged really fast.
Very fast. I was surprised when
I have thoughts on the changes, but I don't think that's the section. So I'm trying to be like,
we're gonna get there. But so in the movie, or in the series, I watched it like a movie because I binged it.
Me too.
I mean, we all do. It's like we understand that when you say movie, you mean visual adaptation.
An 8-hour movie that I watched. Yeah. So I do appreciate the way that the way it starts. I liked the way it started just fine in the book, but in the movie we start with Kate, and that's how they meet. The way that they meet, it's Kate on a horse, and he doesn't know who she is, and so there's that first who is this person
It's
that
a lot more fun
yes,
Mhm.
a lot more fun. And she's riding a horse.
than
And
opening
he
with pages of Anthony of us reading like Anthony thought he was going to die at a super young age, and then
Yeah.
he just like randomly like tells his brothers like, I need to get married this season, almost causing his brothers to choke on like whatever they were snacking on.
yeah, so it's I love the opening. It works for a show much better. So we're go through this opening, and then we have, of course, the queen has to decide who's gonna be um the diamond. Yeah, the diamond. And it gets cut off by Lady Whistledown. So Eloise is saved. Because we can talk about all the stuff that's going on with all the other characters now, because we know Eloise
Mhm.
is come out. She's got this like feather in her hair. She looks beautiful, but she's so
You can tell she was about to have a panic
my
attack, and
God.
like Daphne's looking at her.
I'm
Which
like,
bravo
so
to
and
the
the queen is
actress
like,
for
what is
that, like-
happening with this girl?
Oh, bravo.
It's like so anxiety provoking.
I loved it. I already liked Eloise, so I was like, I love this whole thing. The
I love when the
awkwardness is
distraction
real.
happens. She's like, can I go? And her mom's like, I don't know. And she's like, okay, I'm leaving. Like, no one's saying I
She's out
can't.
of there.
I'm out of here.
So then we have the guys are shaving, and Anthony is like, he tells them, his brothers, that he's gonna get married, and they haven't picked the diamond yet, but I guess that they decide that he just is like, yeah, whoever it is, that's who I'm gonna. And like, how do you even know that she's gonna like? I guess he's a Viscount, so
Well, he says that in the carriage on the way to Eloise's presentation.
Yeah, her
to the
presentation.
queen. But then later when he and Benedict are getting shaved, he's like, oh, it's absolutely Edwina who's been named.
Oh
the
yeah, because we
diamond.
hadn't been named yet.
Yeah,
Thank you for-
it's like it's gonna be Edwina because, and then like have to deal with the sister.
and that's the fun part.
But during the fencing scene, they do say like, how do you know that like she's gonna take you? And he's like, because I've decided it. And you're like, okay, Anthony,
Like,
great.
obvious.
So glad that's how life works for you as a wealthy straight white man in this world.
Yeah.
Well, that's where the relationships really come together too, because you feel for the brothers in that moment where they're all just making fun of each other and they're trying to knock him down a few pegs because they know that he has a very big head.
Absolutely.
I love that scene where they're like, should we even be like doing this, or are you just like gonna spar on your own because like you keep beating us? Like, why are we here?
I think that might be part of it because we are focusing on the Bridgertons. It takes there's a little less like you start feeling this for Kate, what you felt for Daphne last season, and for Eloise. But for Anthony, we know that this is going to be his story, and so you don't feel that stress that he's going to get stuck with, a
bad relationship.
Lord Burbrick or something. Nobody's going to make the decision for him, so at least in that respect, we can have a little fun with this because he's going to get a good pick no matter what.
But the interview process he put, like the methodical,
That
like,
was
unemotional process he put to trying to find a Viscountess.
He like comes into the Bridgerton sitting room, whatever the hell it was called, and he's like, oh, I have interviews to do. And they're like, don't you mean courting? It's like, nope.
Yeah. He's like, no, and it literally is interviews.
And then his mom is like, shouldn't you have some emotion about this? He's like, shouldn't you want someone to take over this household? I mean, she's pretty much going to take your job.
I was like, dude, you cannot say that to your mom. Like, she
has
shot you down multiple times in season 1. She will do it again in this season, even though you're now the leading man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and she, like, that's what I've liked is even though he's head of house, she, like, yeah, publicly he's head of house, but like in the home, she's like, I birthed you, I changed your diapers.
Well, like, yeah, because they're an unusual family where it's like not all put off on like the maids or whatever. Like they clearly have people who are running after Hyacinth and Gregory, like in the not first shot of season 1, but like when they're all waiting for Daphne and they're like, there's chaos. Like there are people watching Hyacinth and Gregory, but like she's a very involved parent, and as was I can never remember the father's name. Edward, something like that. Edwin, whatever.
Edmund,
I think.
Thank you, Edmund. So like they were pretty involved, minus in the show, it shows that like she was very absent, like emotionally after he died. And probably added to postpartum depression, which I'm sure did not help.
Yeah. And
I'm pretty sure it
very
put her in
dramatic.
early labor.
Yeah.
That whole episode was very dramatic. I mean, I don't cry a lot,
so
but I was trying to get a little misty.
I told my mom that like I basically cried from like episode 3 onward, and she was watching it and she's like, really? Like for the relationship? I was like, no, the family dynamics. What is there to cry about between Anthony and Kate? No, like I'm crying about like the grief that the Bridgertons have been through or whatever.
Oh yeah.
And that's where it works so well when they do their own dance. Like they try and throw a ball to show that they're a strong family together, and then no one shows up. And that was probably one of my favorite scenes in the whole.
I love that.
That.
He asked Hyacinth to dance. I was like, oh my God, he's like emotionally opening up to like his family. Like he still has his head in his, about.
But that was his redeeming quality, because I think there was actually a shot of Kate looking at him going, all right, like he has a heart.
Yeah, like in the book, there's a moment where he like stands up. He gives Cressida the cut for like insulting.
Yes,
Penelope, and that's when she's like, oh, and like I'm happy that they had a moment like that in the show, because I was like, if they don't have that, I would have felt cheated.
Yeah, he needed a redeeming quality and show that he has emotion and stuff. But one of my favorite lines in the show is when Mama Bridgerton tells him off and goes, well, maybe other suitors will watch their words around the diamond.
I love that.
And everything. And he's like, what? I said I didn't want to fall in love. She's like, well, that's what she wants. So if you want.
I love when Lady Danbury, like they're all at the races, it's like she wants a love match and apparently your son doesn't, and she's like, maybe we can persuade her, and Lady Bridgerton is like, maybe we can persuade him. She's like, I'm not okay with my son being a heartless person.
Yeah, I'm glad she recognizes there's
we have a problem. Edwina. We don't need to fix Edwina. Love matches are good. They're not fashionable, but like I want that for whoever son, I want that for my son, so I'm going to work on him.
Yeah, I love the introduction of Anthony's friend, because he kind of like makes him jealous, even though he's the one who does the setup.
Like, you did this yourself. Like you made your bed, you can lie in it.
And towards I think it's the second time that they meet and they're on the boat, where she's just like entertaining the thought, she's telling him, I'm just going to go back to India, because in the show she is content that she's just going to find Edwina, get her situation straight so that she can get her dowry from her family. So the family dynamics are a little bit a lot different.
Very different.
Are a little bit different. So there's still the motivations of the older sister really looking out for making sure that the younger sister is taken care of, but she's just going to go back to India and, just teach or do something, just live way off the grid and just be out of her life. She just wants her sister to be happy.
She has a plan to be independent, and she is happy with that, but then Lady Danbury is like, excuse me. Lady Danbury is like, yeah, but like, are you actually going to be content with that? Because you're shutting off a lot of things that you could have.
Yeah. And also
considering them. And she's like, oh, but you're that way. And Lady Danbury is like, first of all, we're not on the same level. Like,
we're not.
I've done everything else, and I've earned my status as an independent woman in this society because I have born children and I'm a widow.
As a governess,
with a title.
As a governess, she's going to be very poor. And at the point where she can't work anymore, she's going to be completely dependent on whatever it is that she's been able to save, or at the mercy of whoever Edwina marries to then, give her a little allowance to be able to survive. And I think about Jane Austen's, one of Jane Austen's novels, where the two ladies are just living just nothing like the life that they should have had, but because they're not married and they're older women, there are no prospects. So Lady Danbury is trying.
I've read every single Jane Austen book, and my brain is completely. Thank you. I'm like, my brain is failing me on picking out which one. Oh, that's embarrassing as an Englishman.
Okay. Talking about the whole thing, what I think the show did really good on was Edwina's like lack of making decisions for herself. There were so many shots of someone asking Edwina something and her looking to Kate or her looking to her mother, like, can I, should I? Like, it was this constant, like, Edwina fueling
dance for the first time.
Yeah. Like Edwina fueling
doesn't even look at the guy.
Yeah, fueling the whole thing of like where she was trained and I know this word has a negative connotation, but I mean it in the best way possible, but she was kind of conditioned or groomed to always look to
the G word.
I know, look to her sister of what should I do? Like she at the beginning of the show, I was like, make your own choices. Like like it's a football game. I'm yelling at the screen.
There is something in the trailer which I think they like slightly changed the line in the final cut. Final show would have been accurate too. Anyway, where Anthony is like, have you ever asked like what your sister wants? And they changed it a little bit in the show in a way that I actually felt like it undercut like the meaning a little bit, whatever it was with the wording. It was like very minor, but to me, I was like, you had it perfect in the trailer. Why would you do this to yourselves? But it like, that never really, I feel like the trailer addressed it and the book didn't really have to, because like we said, like she says like, hey, I kind of want a scholar, and her mom and sister are like, okay, cool. But in the show, that was perfectly there, and I don't feel like they ever address it until like it comes to a head where Edwina's like, you've been putting on me what you wanted the whole time, and like I haven't made a single decision for myself, so now I'm making one. But I kind of wish that they had kept the weight of that line from the trailer where it's like, okay, like you're a nightmare to deal with, you know, guarding your sister like a dragon, but like, you know, your loyalty is to your sister, and I can understand that because my loyalty is to my family too. But have you asked what she wants? Because maybe you're getting in the way of what she wants. And then it's like later when they're talking after they think the wedding's over, been canceled because of that disastrous dinner. And she's like, I love him. And Kate's like, wait, you love him? And she's like, of course I do. Like, how could I not? And it's like, you could have like had something earlier where Kate's like, does Edwina want this? Like,
yeah, because that's a really bad time.
If you're going to make it a like kind of love triangle in the show, there should be more consideration between the sisters, given how close they are. And there was a breakdown that they did. I think it was mostly just, why can't I remember any of their names now? But the actors who play Edwina, Kate, and Anthony, who I know is Jonathan Bailey. He's the only actor name I remember of the like whole season. They were talking about it, and Charitra Chandra or Chandra, who plays Edwina, she was like, you know, like I know a lot of people are being like, how could she have not noticed? But to her, like it never occurred to her that her sister could be in love with
this guy,
her fiance. But Kate should have been paying attention to how Edwina was feeling.
That all of the efforts that Edwina was putting in were more than just efforts of let me try and woo the suitor. That it was more like, I think I want to be a part of this family.
She didn't know about the pressure to have to get married to a title. So like all of Edwina's things are genuine. So you should have taken that into account, Kate. I'm sorry. That bothered me about the show.
And even like, I loved how they showed at the Pall Mall game how Edwina was like in this show, she was like not here for the game. Like all of the competitiveness, she was way like, I'm so uncomfortable, but still trying to make efforts. Like, I'm going to go hang out with Lady Bridgerton. And, you know, she like all throughout the whole thing where she's just like really just trying to make all of these little efforts. But I think Kate is so focused on that she doesn't want this rake with her sister that she just is not seeing it. She's just not seeing it. Meanwhile, as Kate is focused on, Anthony, and Anthony is focusing on Kate, like Daphne thinks that Kate is Edwina because Anthony's kind of like looking at her longingly. Like
they made a reel where they cut together like Daphne being like, and you must be Miss Edwina, and then Anthony immediately going like, no, this is the sister, and then it cuts to like the computer error sound and like the numbers as a layover, and it's like, and then it cuts to some other show where it's like, I'm confused, and then it cuts to like her walking in on them almost kissing, and then it cuts to like the scene from Shrek when like they're almost kissing and then he drops her because Donkey showed up. You're not hiding yourself well, Anthony.
Oh god.
At all. If your sister can see it.
And I feel like this discovery role is given to Daphne to give her more to do because they don't have the Duke in this season. So to give her more things to do, she's given this role of, I'm the one who sees this. Do you people not see what
I'm the one who clocks it first, like even before Lady Danbury. And I'm like, wow, Lady Danbury.
But I love how Lady Bridgerton and Lady Danbury both like started to get the vibe, but they're like, I want him married, and either sister is suitable, but they both think Kate is probably the best match. But of course, Kate and Anthony don't see that. But when everything unfolds in the show, and they like they're trying to figure out how to save face after the wedding's canceled. And they like are near each other, or they look longingly at each other in the drawing room. And Edwina stands up and goes, was I really this blind?
I love that scene.
It's so obvious.
Because she says it, and then they both look very guiltily to like Lady Danbury and Lady Bridgerton, who are sitting like on the same side.
Yeah.
And Edwina's there and Lady Mary's there. And they both immediately look to the people who like clock them. And they're like, and also when they're like, oh, we need a promenade together to like prove that like there's no ill will between our families. And like all the ladies go first, and Kate walks by Anthony and like he closes his eyes and is clearly in love with her perfume. And he opens his eyes and Lady Danbury is like, get it together, boy. Like you cannot look this lovesick while we're doing this.
Yeah. Do it, Barrett. Jump in.
Join us.
Yes, one of us. There are so many just
visually. Comment. I agree. Like Lady Danbury was slow in comparison to Daphne, which I felt was a disservice to her character.
She also wasn't around as much. So in the first season, she was really focused on the Duke because that was basically her. She considered him a son. But here, she didn't really care as much. So I can see that as being.
Well, she is watching out for both of Lady Mary's daughters, to be like, hey, you need this to happen, so don't interfere. So I feel like she would have been paying some attention to be like any like threat to it, even if it comes from within the house. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And sometimes I wonder, there were times when I thought she knows what's going on, right? Right?
That's what I thought too. And then it didn't happen until like they're on, and I'm like, really? Maybe they made a change in editing or something, because there are definitely some knowing looks where I'm like, that's it, right? That's it. And then it doesn't pan out.
Yeah. Or maybe it's because Lady Danbury does find out fairly early on what Kate's big secret about the dowry. So maybe she's just kind of trying to let them do what they need to do, sort of thing. But yeah, I'm like, I feel like she should have known, but definitely, but like that and the fact
that they have not earlier. Wow, that's literally the opposite of what I meant to say. The conversation that they have later when she's like, your sister is about to marry a Viscount, which like fulfills the contract with your like awful grandparents who, this is everything you wanted. Are you going to get in the way of it? Like, I feel like that should have happened sooner if Lady Danbury had like clocked it sooner.
Yeah, I feel like that too. Yeah, I'm trying because I love Lady Danbury so much, but she was not on the ball.
Oh, I don't blame her. I think it's
Yeah,
the writing. I'm like, you underestimate her intelligence.
Yes. Let's see. Something shift from the romance adaptation. Yes, we're about to get into all of those things, but I want to talk about some of the things that happen with the side characters also, because we have
Lots of
the
drama.
Featheringtons are having
Ooh.
some drama in their family.
The new Lord Featherington.
He is a hot mess. He brings that big ugly thing, which my husband might actually be like, that's kind of cool. I'm like, no, that's hideous. It's hideous thing. Sorry for anybody who thought that was really cool looking. This art piece.
A gun rack.
weapons.
It's not an art piece.
Yeah, no.
That's too kind.
No, it's a man cave item. Shouldn't be in the main hallway. Okay.
Yes, and he just he takes over the house, but he's not letting Lady Featherington know anything that's going on. And I don't think that
he's right in that society. But when we're all like, "Oh, we know Lady Featherington is not,"
and I think he figured out much too late, unfortunately, after the whole they're in the orangery, and Lady Featherington totally sets him up, and now he's compromised with her daughter, and so now he's got to marry her, and he's like, well, you just ruined everything. He's like, well, you should have told me, because I would have had this all fixed, trust her, she would have had it all fixed. But the whole time, even though she's going along with what he wants to do, with the scheme, the money scheme for his jewel mines, are they rubies or something like that? Rubies. Yeah. She's going along with it, but you can see she's like 10 steps ahead, just in case.
Well, she's like, I have to protect my daughters. And I don't know who saw, and obviously Lady Featherington is a lot nicer, but if anyone saw the live action Cinderella with
the Brandy one or the newer one?
No, not the Brandy one. The one with Lily James and the guy from Game of Thrones, which I never watched, who's not Kit Harington. The other one.
Oh, yes.
The one who, whatever. The stepmother has this conversation with Cinderella at one point, and she's basically like, I did what I had to do to protect my daughters. Like, I got into this loveless marriage with your dad to protect my daughters. Like, I married first for love, and it didn't turn out well, and now I'm doing what I have to do to protect my daughters. It's like, you do not mess with a mother who's looking out for her daughters when she knows that the entire world is like stacked against.
Yeah. Like, look at Cersei from Game of Thrones. Her only redeeming quality was the love for her children.
Yeah. And in this society, they are literally at the mercy of whoever the man head of the family is. So if they end up with nothing in a cottage out in the country, as she was apparently appalled to have happened to her, that would be that's it. They're out of society. No one's going to find her daughters to marry them. They have no chance. So she's going to do anything she can to keep them living in the lifestyle to which they are accustomed to. And don't get in the way of that.
Like, a mother's role back then is to get her daughters married and like married up. It's like married at the same level is like last resort, and married down is out of the question.
Yep. So I appreciate, it's hard for me to say I love. I just think she did a great job, but I totally appreciate how this ends, and she totally throws him under the bus. And she's like, what in their conversations made him think that she would go to America to start over?
And leave her kids.
Desperation.
Like, hell no.
No, she was, exactly, Ben.
He
thought
he had her motives pegged.
But also he kept making these comments about, like, the first time that like he meets them, he's like, Lady Featherington, does that work if we're not married? And like, even though he's looking at the Cowper so like he can like get their money, because in the first season, Lady Cowper to Lady Bridgerton is like, oh, we all know that your Daphne has the face, but my daughter has the fortune, which I'm like, rude. Like, he's trying to get money, but he keeps making these digs about like, oh, what if like he and Lady Featherington got married? And I'm like, so I think he was like, not in love with her, but I think he was.
He had an infatuation of sorts.
Yeah, like
with
just
her.
cutting her out of everything. I think he did think that, like, oh, they'd be a team. Like, once he finally got on board with Lady Featherington being like, if you tell me what you're doing, maybe I can help you instead of having our like plans clash and screw up both plans.
I think he messed up because he thought her motives were money, but the thing is, she wants money because her true motive was to take care of her daughters, and that's where he got his confusion, because he thought it was just money, but no, the money is what will pay for
the monies are a mean to an end for her.
Yeah. But there was still some other issues, because like the daughter who actually was betrothed to one of the guys, and his parents come by and are like about the dowry, and she's like, oh, it's just been hard.
It's been so hard since I lost my dear dead husband. Well, that mother was mercenary. Understandably so, because it doesn't look like they were that well off, but it's like, wow, chill.
Yeah.
Pretend to chill.
But yeah, they still continued where the outfits speak for themselves. I've watched so many videos where the Featheringtons are obviously new money, so they're very showy and stuff with their colors and their attire, whereas Bridgertons are old money, so that's why it's the pastels and
mostly lavender, but sometimes pastel blue.
Mostly lavender and such. And then
but they put the Sharmas in, like, I mean, not Kate, like she was mostly in like deep jewel tones, but there were times when they were, Lady Mary especially, like are in pastel purpley tones. And I was like, there's no way that the costume designer didn't run this by like the directors and stuff. I was like, why though? Like there's so many other colors in the rainbow that it's not like you ran out of colors for like the 3 rich families that you kind of showed in like the first season.
So either way, I enjoyed it. There was a lot more. I think you even pegged it, Zara, where you said the actually talking extras and stuff. Like a lot of that. Like there was this one guy who was, when Lady Whistledown was quiet, there he was like, "Hey, where's our gossip papers?" And the kid's like, "I don't have any."
Yeah, I like that.
And Colin had a storyline as well. I liked him. He's still living this boyish fantasy. I'm going to go find Marina and see how she's doing and just talk to her about what could have been. And she's just like, Colin, grow up. I'm content.
I was proud of her.
I was too.
I was proud of her. I was surprised, but I was like good for you.
She grew up quick, and she put him in his place. Like, yes, what could have been, but it wasn't. And her,
like, she's always been very practical.
Yeah. And I kind of got the vibe that her and her husband, I forget his name.
Philip.
Yeah. That I got the vibe that they weren't in love, but they had a respect. It was like a friendship.
Yes,
almost.
I got that
which is better than most of the relationships that happened at that time.
Like, and they had no problem having more children either, but it wasn't like love match. It was like a mutual.
We can get along.
Yes, a mutual love, but not an in love.
It's like, I'm going to let you do your botany thing because that interests me zero.
And I can do my thing.
And it's like, I've done my duty in bearing you kids, but like I live comfortably because we're married. And it's like, I'm not going to embarrass you. You're not going to embarrass me. We're good.
Yeah. And they kind of have this mutual thing, probably the love of his brother to kind of like, that's their tie, you know? And now these are at least the first 2 kids are
which
his
I
kids.
love Sir Philip's character from season 1 just for the fact of like, my brother did this to you and he's passed away. I'm stepping up.
Yeah, he's a very responsible and like decent person. And I can't really say much more about his character because I'm like, I've read the whole series. I got.
Oh yeah, you did tell me that he shows up again. So I can't wait.
Yeah, I was so shocked when he showed up in season 1. And then I don't know why. It's stupid that he would be in season 1 and not in season 2, but my friend was like, "Oh yeah, it's nice to see you again."
So I was glad to see them. And then Colin's got his storyline with
Rosalba, I'm
Lord
trying not
Feather.
to spoil books way in the future, because while we say that this is a light spoiler chat, like there's a reason I kept my mouth shut on that.
Fair enough.
And I can't wait to find out why.
Yeah, we're
Don't read the
spoilers
comments.
for
Yeah,
seasons
then
1
don't
and
read the
2.
comments.
Yeah, don't
Do you want
read
me
the
to? Do you want me
comments.
to close that to remove that one?
Yeah.
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 Tell them we are
Sorry.
only spoiling what was their name. Just let them know we are only spoiling exactly what we're reading and watching right now.
Yeah.
So
And
only
the
season
stuff that
2,
and precedes it.
and if it happened in book 1, oh, don't worry, no worries, it's
Yeah,
okay.
no, sorry.
It
That sounded
happens.
really harsh, but I just because I read not all of the books, because not all the books had come out when I was reading them, but I read these books in like 2012, way before anything. And then my mom was like, "Oh, I'm watching the show," and I'm like, "Wait, that was based on a book that I read." Whereas I feel like a lot of people, no shame at all, are like coming to the books because of the show. Like I've read all the books and I am rereading them in preparation for these chats. But I'm like, oh, I know where it's all headed, at least in the books. And obviously they've been diverging.
They definitely diverged in season 2, which
Yeah,
I
they
think we should talk about the
diverged.
differences next.
But like the couples are still the couples, which is
Yeah.
why I'm like, I don't want to say anything. And if you're reading the books, like don't read the epilogues because they completely spoil who ends up with who.
Yes, I learned that.
Bugs.
I learned that when I started reading. So I've read the first 4 books. So that's where I'm up to date on the first 4 books, and of course the first 2 seasons. And I'm trying to wait a little bit, so I have a little bit more surprise. I'm trying to wait to read the next 4 books, but I probably will start reading the next 4 books next year because
Like,
I can't wait anymore. I need to know.
I can't even say stuff about the 5th book because it's like it's Eloise's book. Saying anything else, spoilers.
Yeah, and Shonda Rhimes did say that from here on out, things are going to be very, very different. And I had a feeling it's Eloise's story is probably one that's going to be, because I don't see Colin's story changing.
They can't change it that much.
Yeah.
They've done so much.
So
but like,
I feel like that's where it's going to be like, and maybe I don't know what I don't see why they would.
No, I think Benedict's.
I think Benedict's will be the same.
Benedict's will fall back in line to some degree. Yeah. I understand diverging and things like that, but I don't think any person adapting a book wants to court the fury of fans if they change the ending couple. A lot of people for Shadow and Bone, which I know is not this discussion, like a lot of people are like, Ben Barnes changes the game, and it's like, okay, no, maybe, but also like no, because it's based on books.
Yeah. Like some things you can change and it's gonna be fine, and some things it's like
you can change a lot of things, but sometimes the end point has to be the end point.
Yes. So I love what he had going on with with Lord Featherington and Will. Was Will's bar the gentleman's club? It sounds weird saying gentleman's club. You're right, Natalie.
It's like now we have such different connotations.
Yeah.
Was Will's club named after his last name? Or
what was it called
I know the other one was called White's. And the other one I just kept calling it Will's Club.
What is it called?
So
I don't remember.
We'll just call it the bar.
I also
was it Mondrick's? Because I know his name is Mondrick, but was that the name of the club?
You know what? Let's just call it that then.
I don't think it was called that though.
Will's Club. We'll call it.
Yeah, in my head it was just Will's Club because I think I would have remembered if it was called Mondrich's.
So I'm glad that that's back. So glad to see him back and glad to see what he did with that Featherington money.
Yeah,
technically it's his. You know, he kept his end of the bargain, so
it was his cut.
That's his money. He did the thing.
And I love that, like they showed it kind of being tough on him. Like there was hardly any people, and he was being taken advantage of. Wait, what?
Sorry, Will Mondrich is based on a real person.
Oh,
and the Queen in Bridgerton is based on Queen Charlotte, who was the first Black Queen of England. So. Well, I like that they're doing that because these characters didn't exist in the books.
Yeah.
And now I keep learning. I was like, oh, like they're actually taking from history more than like I mean, I could have known about the queen, but like I had no idea that.
The last I heard is not an actual confirmation of that Queen Charlotte was black, but there.
You look at her portrait, and it's very clear
in
that
her looks, the way that she looked, and just the way that they talked about her at the time. I think at the time they believed it because of the things that they said about her, and just we knew what her roots were from the Portuguese Moors. So sometimes those traits just stay super, super strong.
Will Mondrich is an anagram of the real guy's name, which is so cool.
Nice.
But I'm trying to find the name of his club, and that's why I found this article where it's like, oh, he's based on real.
I just love that at the end, Colin like apologized to him and said, "Hey, thanks for looking out. I'm in your debt, and this is a small way I can repay you, which is here's all these patrons that will come here."
Yes.
And I also like.
Go ahead, Ben.
Oh, I was going to say I also like that Colin wasn't naive in falling for Featherington's trap.
Yeah. See, but was he? See, the thing is, Colin had been traveling, so we don't know what all Colin has seen, in his days of traveling. Maybe he has become. Maybe he still does live in a little bit of a fantasy world when it came to Marina, but maybe when it comes to the way that guys work and the inner workings of men, maybe he's seen some shady stuff.
I mean, he was pretty confident that the rubies were fake.
When you slam that thing on the table, if it's not fake, you might hurt your hand,
Yeah. Broke it with like a hammer or something like that.
And Ethel, we'll get to your comment in just a minute because we're getting ready to go all spoilers.
But I feel like maybe he was naive at first, but then even though like he rebuked Will for doing that, like I wonder if like that planted the seed of doubt, because I don't know if I have enough faith in Colin in the show to have immediately been like suspicious of it because he was so eager to like make his mark on his own, like apart from just being a Bridgerton, which is actually like something that is more Benedict's thing in the book, where he's like, I want to be apart from just the Bridgerton crew. But so I don't know if he would have immediately thought of that, but I'm glad that he did, because I think it was very good. And then it led very well into I would like never date Penelope. I would never court Penelope, which is done.
That line.
Which is done differently, and is actually done in like book 3 of, the books series. Yeah. But it was like, it still hurts. Like, I like the way it's done, but poor Penelope. And it's like, I understand he meant it as a compliment, but obviously that's not the way it's
that's not what. So I do want to talk about Benedict, Penelope, and Eloise. And I love the two seconds is what I call them, because they have some struggles. Benedict's struggle seems so, I don't want to say privileged people's problems,
like first world problems.
It is absolutely first world problems.
It's like he's so excited that he gets into this art school. I mean, I felt it for him when he found out. Your way was paid into this art school.
My heart was broken for him. Because I wasn't expecting that.
Me either. I thought he got into.
I don't think I would have even thought that, because he never says it in front of Anthony. Like, Anthony knows that he's been drawing and stuff, but like he tells Colin and Eloise that he applied, which is why they find him. Or, I mean, Colin is more just checking up on him, where it's like, hey, you took a bunch of drugs. How are you doing, buddy? But Eloise comes in with the letter because she knows that that's what he's been waiting for. So I was like, how did Anthony even find out?
Yeah, he's like shouting it outdoors. He's so excited. And then just to find out that, of course you got in. It was paid for. And it's just devastating. But he has the talent still. So and in the end, when he closes his stuff, and it's just like, don't give up. Don't give up. You got in,
But like, he thought it was on his merit. But like, while he is there, in the statement that like shatters his world, they are saying like, "Oh, we're surprised that you're actually doing good work."
Yeah.
So like, they do admit that he has good work, but I feel like that's going to be completely drowned out by the realization of like, "Oh, my way was paid, so I wasn't admitted on talent." So I'm expecting imposter syndrome for him.
Yeah, very bad imposter syndrome.
Which we can all relate to.
Yep.
Or
And my
Benedict.
favorite friendship, Penelope and Eloise. This whole
I
Lady
know.
Whistledown situation is just getting in their way. So first, Penelope cannot get a break to go do her
She's
Lady
like, can you
Whistledown stuff,
please not be glued to my side?
Yeah.
which ends up in the end, it ends up biting her in the butt, you know, because when she lets her guard down at the end and just it slips out of her mouth so easily, words that
I have
sound
stuff
just
to
like
say
Lady.
about the argument though, because Eloise is like, you said that people were talking about me and what's his name, Theo?
Yeah.
I don't know
Whatever.
what his name was.
You said people were talking about me and Theo, but that's not true because Lady Whistledown would have written about it. I'm like, that logic doesn't hold up because Lady Whistledown hears the stuff from the staff who then writes it, and then everyone else in the ton talks about it because Lady Whistledown wrote about it. So like, I was just like, I know that you're pissed, and you should be pissed that your like friend aired your dirty laundry, even though, as Penelope said, like it's the only way I could convince the queen that like you're not her.
Yeah.
Because this is a reputation ruining thing, not just for her, but for the family, regardless of their status. I was saw like, this happen with the Featheringtons.
But it just bothered me that her logic in that argument was so wrong. Because I was like, you got it turned around there.
But that whole situation, like, we always like do pairs of shipping people for relationships, but this finally made me realize how much I do pairings for friendships.
I do that.
And I was like, I didn't realize I needed this, but now that it's gone, I'm like, wait, I took it for granted. I thought it would always be there.
But honestly, I'm like, what on earth is Eloise thinking to continuing going back there? I get that she wants to find out who Lady Whistledown is.
Well, now she has no reason to because she knows who Lady Whistledown was. It was going there with the hopes of trying to figure it out.
But she knows how bad that would be.
Part of me wonders if she's going to try and like rekindle her relationship with Theo, like in the 3rd season or something, where she's like, well, the cat's already out of the bag.
Yeah.
Like, I really like you, and I'm sorry I broke this up because I found out that like I got betrayed, whatever. Like, I shouldn't have done that. Like, I really like you as a person.
And that's the thing, is that Eloise is feeling hurt because she thought her and Penelope were close. And when you find out that your best friend is keeping a huge freaking secret from you, that you thought y'all were close, like, and you tell her everything, she still keeps something from you, it hurts.
Yeah,
it definitely hurts. And so I think that's where most of this is coming from. And so when you're hurt, you lash out, and your logic is
that's why I think that she might like go back to it, because like completely unrelated, but I promise it is kind of where at the end the queen, you know, the Calpers are like gossiping, and she's like, oh, like I called off the wedding because it was my decision. By the way, Edwina, like, have I mentioned my nephew? He's a prince. And I'm like, oh, is he coming back? Because then I would be like, if he's coming back, then maybe, you know, Theo could come back, and like all these things where it's like you've been setting up relationships that maybe aren't endgame or, you know, whatever, but it's like you have the freedom of the show, and it would be a lot of fun to see these faces recurring. You know, I never want to see Borbrook again.
I do like constant intertwining. Like,
yeah, it's like it's bringing it back together where it doesn't feel like kind of disjointed.
Yeah, I don't want episodic. I want like, oh, this person's from season 1 situation. That's
like,
what I want.
Like, I don't want to just be the Featheringtons, the Calpers, and obviously the Bridgertons and Lady Danbury, like being the only through line. Like, they're all amazing, don't get me wrong, but it's like the reminder that they exist in a world that is still consistent because these other people don't stop existing when they come off screen.
So regarding the question on screen right now, I thought they had the diversity in season 1. They upped it. They were more diverse this go around, and I loved it. I loved it so much. Like, and they when they branch away from, like, we've talked about it before, like wearing white was not very common back then, but they allow it to be more common. I love it because it works with the characters. They're branching out in the right places, is my point. And with the clothes, the actors and actresses, allowing people to have accents that are not just straight British.
The code switching of the Indian accent to the more British, depending on who the sisters were in front of. I was
like, I thought it was endearing, and just there's chemistry, not just romantic chemistry, but like having that intimacy coach and everything, that all the chemistry is there, not just romantic, but the sibling chemistry as well. Like Benedict and Eloise, I love their swing set talks.
I
live for them. I just love these characters so much.
Those are honestly like my favorite scenes, like across both seasons. And it's like, what about the romance? I was like, yeah, I mean, it's good, but like, I'm here for the sibling stuff.
But
like, sorry.
Oh, I was just gonna say, like, I'm trying to think if there's a person who's been cast that I'm just like, no. Even Newton, I'm like, I'm so happy. Like, when I went back and I reread parts of the book, and I can only see the characters from the show now in these parts. Like, I can't picture anybody else. Even when they say Kate or Edwina had blonde hair and blue eyes, and Kate's
I don't care.
I'm like, I don't care. I see the Edwina that we got on this show.
Like, I just see like the character differences, like as in like attitude or whatever between them and the show, but I like see the actor.
Yeah,
I don't care if people have different skin colors, because I like, for example, the Brandy version of Cinderella.
Mm-hmm.
Kevin Kline was the dad, Whoopi Goldberg the mom, and then they had an Asian child.
Yeah.
Like, I don't care. It was still good. Whoopi Goldberg was his mother, and that's all I care.
It wasn't Kevin Kline. It was someone else, but
he does a lot of Broadway type stuff. What is his name? He was also in The Flash.
I didn't watch The Flash, but this is bothering me because Richard Gere. There we go.
No.
I think it's Richard
Garber.
Yes, Garber. Thank you. It was
Garber.
Richard
Garber. Yeah, my bad.
Garber, yes.
Victor Garber,
and then Garber.
And Jason Alexander, obviously Whitney Houston.
Yeah, that's my Cinderella.
That's my Cinderella.
It was so much fun.
So
yeah, obviously the diversity doesn't bother me.
I was so stupidly happy when during the presentation they showed two like debutantes who looked like me, because in the season 1 the only person who looked like me was one of the Queen's attendants, where I was like, okay, cool, it's not just like white and brown or like white and black.
The same thing with a dark skinned black girl, or the Queen's. It's like the Queen's.
I mean, I still think colorism is a bit of a problem, because everyone's been talking about how they're like almost exclusively like promoting Edwina in like on the social media, and not really Kate, who's the leading lady of the season.
I know she had those mannerisms were so good with the straight back, and it helps that she's tall. She's very tall and slender, but the straight back of Kate and the pursing of her lips, the "you vex me" thing that she does. I'm like, I can only see you now as Kate forever and ever.
Yeah.
So I of course, Lady Danbury, Lady Bridgerton, Lady Featherington, all phenomenal. The Queen.
I think everyone has been cast perfectly. Like, even if I didn't think about it before, like, I don't think I could have been like, oh, this is what they should do when they cast the show. Even if they were like, oh, it's going to be diverse. Like, I don't think I could have thought of anyone for anything. But like what we got.
Like, I watched some, like, the other people that tested for the characters, and I'm see who else could have been, or like where Anthony was actually trying to be I think he was trying to be the Duke at one point.
He did audition.
And then they changed it and said, hey, we want to try you with this. And it's just so interesting to see that, because I'm like, no, why would you think you could go for that role?
Well, there was the scene of him getting out of the water that my wife definitely liked.
Yeah, that was.
They did nice. That in one take.
Ooh, good.
I was watching the behind the scenes where they were like, they fell in, obviously, and the guy who, I can't remember his name, but Anthony's friend or whatever, he apparently like turned to Anthony and was like, what happened? And he's like, we got it. And they're like, great, because we're cold.
Yeah. Yes. So this is a perfect transition from characters to changes. I wanted more of the Charmer's backstory visually. Yes.
Yeah.
This is the one thing where I'm really like, I wanted to know why Kate was, I wanted to see the same amount of trauma explored with Kate as they did with Anthony. Like they did phenomenal with Anthony.
But like
I wanted to
away.
She never had the talk with her mom, did she?
No, they took away Kate's trauma in the show. So
and
like,
they just made her more just, I'm scared of thunderstorms. But the reason why is so beautiful in the book.
But like they barely even do I'm scared of thunderstorms. It unsettles me. And it's like, I'm not scared of thunderstorms, but like sometimes they wake me up or they keep me from sleeping. I was like, no, there was so much more behind this. And it doesn't detract from your relationship with Mary, who in the show she calls mom, which in the book she doesn't, because like she's not there and Lady Mary has never forced her to be there. And it's like, you didn't have to cut that. But even if you did, I would have like, okay, if you're going to cut her trauma, which I'm not a fan of, then show me like a younger Kate teaching Edwina like how to do all this stuff so I can see the bonding.
Yeah.
Not that you didn't portray it well like in the current time, but if you're going to show a young, I mean, really not, like you could have cast a different actor to play young Anthony because him and his father look like way too close in age.
Yeah.
It's like, if you're going to show like a flashback of Anthony, which I get his trauma, like show us a flashback of you and Edwina because you make such a big deal about it to Lady Danbury when you're like, oh, we don't need your tutors.
Yeah. Like I didn't mind the changes because for me, the changes that happened after the first couple episodes, they work for television. They work for, a series.
They put me on the end of my seat. I was like, oh, this didn't happen in the book. What is
some
about
of
to
these
happen?
things, if they tried to portray it on screen, would have seemed silly. The added drama of Edwina actually falling for, I don't know if she was, I don't really know if she was in love, but having that love
it was a puppy love. Like I feel like it was her first, like she was in love with the idea of love. That immaturity is what I feel.
Yep, that's more. Go ahead, Ben.
I was going to say, it seemed like she had a checklist in the show, and it seemed like he matched up with everything. So I don't know if it was necessarily puppy love, but it went a little bit beyond that. But it still was. He's a match for what my ideal might be, and so I wanted to try and. So she was much more disappointed when it didn't work out.
Let me put it this way. Like I've dated people where like on paper, I should like them. I should love them. And they do check every box, but there's something missing. That spark, that chemistry and everything. And then there's people who totally like are maybe hit a few of my, maybe hit like my husband. He didn't hit every single thing that I wanted, but there was something there.
I feel like
still there.
When Daphne is talking to Anthony in the study, and she's like, oh, if you feel like, you can't be in the same room with them, like without wanting to kiss them and blah, 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 blah. And he's like, couldn't have said it better myself. And we're like, we all know that you're thinking of the other Charmer sister, not the one that you just declared that you're going to marry.
Yep. So, go ahead, Ben.
No, it's all you.
Okay, I was just going to say this, the points of divergence, Shonda knows what she's doing. You know what I mean? If Edwina had been so, okay, whatever, we would have been like, that's not realistic, even though it worked in the romance novel, and it works as a romance. But it works in that tropey. She's very, very young, has no idea really what's going on, but she sees these two people and she's like, okay, wasn't that into him anyway, kind of thing. But to just drag that out, what I was afraid of when this one was, after I read the book, and I was like, oh, Shonda's going to get her hands on this. I didn't know if it was going to be, how the love triangle was going to go. I was like, I know she's going to make Edwina fall. I don't know. I just had a feeling she was just going to make that more dramatic. And I didn't want to mess up. Yeah. I didn't want her to mess up the family dynamic relationship between Kate, Edwina, and Mary. I love that so much in the book, how no matter what, they were down for each other, that I was afraid that that their relationship might be destroyed. And I got a little worried, again, she had me on the edge of my seat, but I got a little worried there when Edwina was really, really upset, and they actually took them down the aisle. I'm like, what? I'm like, oh my God. No. But I guess that works.
I like the argument in the room where like Edwina was like getting ready and where Mary basically threw Kate out, where she's like, you kept way too many secrets from me. And like, like I like that. And I liked when Kate confesses to Mary, where basically she's like, after the Viscount and I, and she's like, shit, cat's out of the bag. And he's only proposing to me, like, not because he loves me. Like, I like that reconciliation. But I feel like Edwina only like being like, okay, I had questions because I had time to think because we thought you might die. Like, I just felt like that was a little cheap. Like, I wanted her to come to the realization on her own, not because of like some potentially life-ending event, not even life-changing. Like, that just felt a lot to me.
Yeah, it was a cop-out.
Yeah. But
I was okay with every other divergence. Like, I was really nervous about the love triangle because I was like, we know who ends up together. So like, I feel really bad for Edwina, but I was okay with the divergence. But that I was like, that's a little cheap.
Yeah. For me, I needed to make sure that Edwina, Mary, and Kate came out okay.
I know. I was like what?
I needed that.
And I wanted their reputations intact. Like, because I wanted the reputations to stay there. I didn't want this to be a marriage out of, I don't even know what to call it. Okay, like out of scandal and everything. I didn't want it to be this black cloud for Anthony and Kate either.
Yeah. So some of the divergence, they were making me nervous, but I think that's what they were supposed to do. Because if I felt very comfortable with how all the relationships were going to be. So even though I'm like, I know that Kate and Anthony are going to end up together, but how many relationships are going to be wrecked,
destroyed in the process?
Yeah. That's where the real tension was. I was like, oh my gosh. And the fact that they were really waiting until the end. I'm like, how many episodes? And Kate and Anthony are not together yet.
It felt rushed. I agree. And then also like, in the book, after the Pall Mall scene, like when it starts raining and like she kind of freaks and she's like, oh, I want to get inside. He's like, oh, because you made me lose the game. Like, you owe me something and I'm going to ask you a question and you have to answer honestly. And like, she really freaks out. And he's like, do you think I'm still awful? And like, that's him like starting to think like, hey, maybe like I would marry her. Like, I get that in the show, he's like, completely tied to duty, and then he's like, oh, like I'll just beg off, and then she's like, no, like my sister's reputation would be ruined. Like, I understand why they had to keep going through the charade, but I never felt like Anthony ever actually entertained the idea of, hey, maybe I do like want to marry Kate in the show, where it's just like, oh, like I desire her, so obviously I don't want to marry the sister, and like like that would be bad. At some point he finally comes to that realization. Yeah. It's like, dude, you got way far down the line of action to be having these thoughts in a society where it's anyone who begs off of engagement, even if it's less weird if the woman does, is bad.
Yes. I kind of want to get into, do you guys want to do worst changes or best changes first?
Let's do worst.
Let's do worst and end on a high note.
Yeah.
All right, awesome. So for me, the changes that I did not like was basically the end, that we don't get a wedding. And that their actual, because their marriage, the part that we get that their marriage is so short, I don't feel like we got a lot of they're in love, and I wanted more of that. So the ending felt super, super rushed, and I wanted more. I'm in love, we're in love, this is real, I wanted more of that. I feel like because they got married so early in the book in comparison, that we got more of their falling in love part of it. And they mentioned that the wedding was small, but there was still a wedding got mentioned. We did not get a wedding. So
You
yeah.
just wake up in bed and are like, oh, we're married. And I'm like, great.
Yeah, I needed the growth, the admission. I felt like in the book, it was almost a rinse and repeat of the Duke and I, where I was afraid that they were going to be like married and then go, oh wait, we do love each other. Like I got a hint of that, and I'm like, please don't do the exact same thing.
Yeah. So I'm glad they at least figured it out ahead of time. And then when they did the deed and he's like, I'll just marry you, she's like, no. At first she's like, yeah, don't, no.
You know, take that super romantic proposal back to where you came from.
Yeah. And then she cried after it. And I was like, ah. So yeah, I guess it worked, but I wanted more of them actually being in love, not just the you vex me, you know.
Yeah, like I was okay with the slow burn, but it just like they took it too far because it shortchanged us on the other part.
Yes. Absolutely.
On them being married and her being actually interactive in the family.
Yeah,
and
I
also
agree
them
on
being
that.
able to be openly affectionate with each other.
Yes. And then they did a lot at the end, like they're like publicly, like he's like honor attached to her neck, like honor. I'm like, well, they're doing a lot now, but they've only got like 1 minute left. So I guess.
Other worst change, we've already mentioned it, is them cutting Newton's FaceTime and his involvement with the family. It was like, oh yeah, this is my dog. Well, I want more conversation. He was a conversation starter, melder, like he was Loki.
Yeah, and I was expecting him to come back at the end and not bark at Anthony too, to show that
if he
changed.
set that up.
Yes.
Yep.
Or to steal the ball like it did in the book.
Yeah, that would have been so cute.
Like just something cute. But I agree, it should have done that to come back around.
Yeah, that was definitely the other.
Also in the book, he actually loves Anthony.
Yes.
So if we're gonna make that change in the show, which is cool, there should be a payoff. You're right. I didn't even think of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then another thing that I didn't like is the Queen. I liked the Queen. I liked every scene she was in, but there were multiple episodes where they had the fallout of the failed wedding, and so there was all this drama associated with it, and then it gets resolved in one line from the Queen of like, oh, I asked them to annul the wedding or to do whatever. So
I made the decision that it wasn't a good fit.
Yeah.
Yeah, why didn't you come out?
It's all good now.
Yeah, I was wondering how that was gonna come about, because like people saw how Kate and Anthony were. Like it's
actually, I think a lot of people in the wedding were just confused. Like she was right up the Queen was right up front, and even she didn't get what was happening.
Yeah.
So like I think people were just confused. But yeah, she could have done that sooner or something.
Well, and then also the way that unfolded, that it was one look and Edwina finally clicked for her. I needed something more for her to get it. And
I agree. That felt a little bit contrived.
Yeah, because she was so blind before, but on the wedding day, they exchange a look and now all of a sudden it clicks for her.
It's like he's passing her a bracelet. Like that's really what clicks it for you. By the way, that I feel so bad that I can't remember her name. The actress who plays Kate, she was saying that the bracelets were hell to like unlatch. She said that they were like actually really solidly like put on. So she was like, I had to keep trying to like make it fall off.
Yeah, it's Simone Ashley.
Ashley, thank you.
Drop dead gorgeous.
Wow.
As Ella says, I haven't read the book, but I think they could have had an external force make Anthony and Edwina to become betrothed. As someone with a close sister, I think I would have liked that too, because I made me so nervous when Edwina actually fell in or was falling in love with Anthony's puppy love or first love, whatever that was. That made me super nervous.
I mean,
so
I was like okay with her falling in love, but I agree. I feel like
the triangle.
I didn't believe she was in love, honestly.
Yeah.
I didn't believe that Edwina fell in love at all. Like even watching it, I had no nothing to make me connect them together. So when I was
Yeah.
watching, I was like, what love triangle? It's just Kate and
Yeah.
Anthony looking at each other. And then Edwina's over here like, oh, I have to do this for, you know, my reputation and the dowry and everything else.
That's
Yes.
what got me, the no communication between the sister. I think I could buy like the love triangle where like maybe if you are in love, you have a little bit of tunnel vision, but there still should have been some awareness, at least for Kate watching Edwina. And I think, yeah, if there had been an external force, I would have been less nervous because it's not like, oh, it's all from within, which means this thing is going to break down.
Yeah. Which is why I do love Edwina fell in love in quotes, because I didn't buy in that she was actually in love with him in the way that I think that you would be in love with someone when you actually are getting married. I think it's maybe a first love or a hard crush or a, ooh, he's like the football jock or whatever.
I think it was like that. And also
Mhm.
like, oh, he's going to offer me the life that I like and I like his family. And
Yeah,
Daphne,
and we
is
get
like,
along,
and
so
Daphne and the mom who are both like, yeah, she's lovely.
Yep.
Is she really what you want?
Yes, exactly. So, Morgan, did you have any worst changes from book to movie?
No, I only read half of the book.
Oh, that's right. So,
but yeah, no, I don't have anything.
Okay. Any more worst changes?
Nah, I think we hit most.
I think I already aired my grievances like in the previous ones where I was like, they cut her trauma. They like didn't whatever and this and that, you know. So I think I'm good on this.
All right, let's go to our best changes. The best change, I'm glad that they didn't do the Antony's head trying to suck the venom out of Kate's chest. That would have just looked so weird. So
but I think honestly though, like had they done it on the neck and then he'd do it there, I think they would have gotten like everyone who like is still infatuated with like vampires and stuff. So that might have kind of missed an opportunity, but I am glad that they didn't do it the way it was in the book because that would have been like I can't watch.
That some of y'all are coming up with some suggestions that I'm like, yeah, why didn't they do that? That would have worked. But yeah, just that would have been. No, but I do like how traumatic it was for him. Still, he portrayed that trauma without doing
when he's
that part.
Staring at the bee and is like, "Don't move," and she's like, "What did I just tell you about like not telling me what to do?" And he's like, "In complete."
I love that moment. They always do that. Like it's there's with banter and everything. It's this like immediate life or death situation of don't move, and then the person goes. Like, no, like, you don't tell me what to do. It's like, no, seriously, please listen to me.
It's like, this isn't me, like, being high-handed and infuriating. Like, this is me, like, please listen to me for once.
Oh, when you read it in the book, it is just like, it's delicious. You're just like, oh my gosh, they're totally going to get caught like this. You just know.
Yeah,
it's like,
you're just like,
it hits that trope.
You're waiting for the other shoe to drop. But the way that it is, like, it happening is cool, and it's also like comeuppance for, you know, kind of Anthony catching Daphne and the Duke. But it's when you actually think about like how he's sucking out the venom, it's like, oh, this is so stupid. So it's like a mixed reaction.
Anybody else with some best changes?
I already mentioned this before, but I really did like the dance scene with the whole family.
Love that.
I think that was a wonderful addition to show how strong they are together, and that's going to carry through for a lot of seasons.
Mm-hmm. I will throw out another one. Even though we didn't get a lot of Newton, I like that they made Newton and Lady Danbury the ones that were kind of like, the dog is on the furniture. The dog.
I laughed so hard at that.
And not Mary. So
where she's like staring at there's like a shot where the dog is sitting on the chair, and then it pans up to Lady Danbury staring at the dog, like with a displeased expression.
Like I could have lived for more Lady Danbury and Newton scenes.
I would have loved if he was like nipping around her heels and she'd be like, "Don't hit the dog with the cane, don't hit the dog with the cane." Like, I really liked the Queen like really taking Edwina like under her wing like the conversation about like her favorite necklace, and also like being like, oh, I'm going to use her to like smoke out Whistle Down. And like, I like that.
I loved the scene with Edwina when the king came in and Edwina just kind of was able to calm him down, and just the look on the queen's face. That scene,
moment.
like, again, I don't cry very easily, but I was feeling a little misty.
Yeah, that was a beautiful scene.
That's one I gotta rewatch because I feel like I couldn't fully understand everything being said and done in that moment. There was a lot going on. And it was just,
so in real life, they're combining some things that happened in real life, like the Queen and King. They were really in love. That's why all of the negative things that people said about her looks. And if you look at some of the portraits of her, she's actually really what we might consider pretty. But because she had fuller lips and a rounder nose and her bigger eyes, back then they wanted the very narrow nose, very narrow, thin lips. And she didn't have those features. But he saw her and he was in love with her. But he started to lose his mind, literally, as he just became less lucid, and I think he actually had a mental illness, or
I thought it was syphilis.
Maybe
that's what did it. But yeah, something made him.
But it affected his memory, and that's why it was after their youngest died.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it was very traumatic for him, and his cognitive abilities after that point with the death and then the illness taking over just really went downhill. And
it's the same King George that's in Hamilton when like he's saying he's like, with you, when you're gone I'll go mad, and it's like that's a very like tongue-in-cheek way to do it, but like here it's like, yeah, this is what like and imagine, but this is like the struggles that
but the Queen, she was very much she was involved in things like the sugar boycott. She was all for that, against slavery. So these are all things that feed into the rumor that she knew she had some other heritage, whether you believe it or not. But all of these things kind of like tied in together, which is why this is why they cast her. And the cast, she looks so much like her. It's eerie.
When she's in normal it's always a fabulous outfit. But like when she's in civilian clothes during like the press things that they've been doing on YouTube, I'm like, how are you still so like regal?
I know, she looks like
she's
a
like
queen
super
in
chill.
everything.
You can tell that she's chill, and I'm still like, nope, you're still the queen.
Yep.
But what I like about it, speaking of the diversity and stuff, is that like most of these shows that they'll have like secondary characters or like extras diverse, but never a lead. But Lady Danbury, the queen, like who have stolen the show practically.
It's like they technically are secondary characters, but let's be real, like they're protagonists. They're just not the love story.
Yes.
Right.
Like we root for them. They are like, we would be more upset. I think, yes, the entire everybody was upset when we found out that the Duke wasn't coming for season 2. But we would have been more upset if there was like, no, we're not going to have the Queen show up. But what?
It's like,
who's going to pick the diamond then?
And I probably would have rioted if they're like, yeah, Lady Danbury's done because the Duke's not coming back. I'd be like, excuse you.
You better be in every season from now.
But they're doing a spin-off that's about like the young Lady Danbury, young Queen Charlotte, and young Lady Bridgerton that Shonda is going to be personally writing.
I'm excited for it. I'm here for it. I want to get all the deets. Yes.
I can't wait.
It makes me wonder why, because we've done Regency things before, and like historical, but why is this hitting so hard for us? But also like Shonda, all her shows kind of hit hard because of the realistic, relatable characters, I think is what it is.
I think it's also because it's very modern sensibilities. Like you have Eloise who absolutely hates that like women are stuck in this. And it's like you have Penelope who like actually did something. It's not just like one character, like in Pride and Prejudice, where it's like Elizabeth's the only one railing against the system. It's like you have Theo, who's like, hey, like if you want feminist thought that's like better than your bougie whatever the hell you learned in Grosvenor Square, like here are people who are actually doing things. It's closer to what we can relate to, even if we're like, oh, it is in a time where Anthony has every right to be like, yeah, my sister's marrying this like awful guy, even though he doesn't know that he's awful yet. And, you know, you're my best friend, but like I can forbid you from marrying my sister by not approving the match, but also forcing you to marry my sister because you both gave into a moment of passion. It's like
the irony of Daphne being the one catching them
and
being just like,
I love the line where she's like, I'm going to help you this season as much as you help me. He's like, is that a promise or a threat? It's like, it's both, buddy. It is absolutely both. At least you recognize that it could be a threat because you messed up in the first season.
Okay. Any more changes that you guys love?
I think this was only in the show, but it was mentioned that Anthony never cried after, like Violet never saw Anthony cry after his father died. Never saw it.
Daphne says it.
Daphne says it.
So,
yeah. But he cries when he's sitting on the couch with Violet and they're talking about he should have gone to see Kate.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
But and actually, Nia, you and I talked about it a little bit when we were watching the last episode, but there was the scene earlier in the season of him like finding out he's in charge and his mom's giving birth, and they're like, what are we going to do? The baby or your mother, baby or your mother? And he's like, and
they don't even say that. They say, you have to tell us which one. And he's like, what? And his mom, while in painful labor, is like, they're making you decide who you're going to save, me or the baby. And you should not be deciding this. Edmund should be deciding it. And I'm like, God.
Yeah, like that entire moment was very moving. But I loved how that moment he didn't know what to do. He was frozen. He was like, kind of thing. But then when he takes Kate and drops her off in the bedroom, and he's like, she hit her head. I've held pressure. I'm like, he is on it. He is like more put together. He is not breaking down or anything. He's like, this is what
he's soldiering past. He's compartmentalizing.
Yeah.
But it's also when he's like staring at like his mother holding his now like dead father, and she's like, go take care of the kids. And he's just in shock, and she like screams at him to go. Like that's just another moment.
And watching his mother holding his deceased father,
crying,
and I think that because sometimes I'm like, oh, I wish Anthony would have gone to see Kate, but I think he could not put himself in that situation where he is the person who is madly in love with this person who's now dying in his arms.
Yeah.
So in the book, her almost dying is, or what he thinks is her almost dying, is she gets crushed by a carriage and like really, really badly breaks her legs. And I like that they changed it in the show to like echo the fact that they're both riding or whatever. And I'm pretty sure it's the same hedge that like she tries to jump or something. And in the first time he thinks she's not going to, and then she does. And this time she doesn't.
I think that the weather, she's probably not as familiar with it, with the weather being as it is. Probably he's thinking the horse isn't going to want to do it.
I mean, I don't really know or care why the horse didn't do it the second time, but I like that there was a parallel like within the show. But it was,
I like those echoes.
Yeah.
And like then between the two bedrooms, between the horses, between foreshadowings and
because like you said, the way they meet in the show is different. So I really like that change. But then I also love the outside the ballroom on the terrace where the first scene that they released where he's like, here, like, I don't want this, blah, blah, blah. These are my qualities. She's like, who's going to take you? Like, okay, like maybe you think you're the shit, but like, how are you going to convince a woman to take you? Like that doesn't exist in the book. But I was like, yes, I like this.
I like how she got caught too. She's like trying to walk away quickly and
then she hits the can, and it's like, wow.
Very smooth. But I think
like,
it's a
is
little bit of
anyone there? He's like, is anyone there? It's like, what do you think, Anthony?
like you just heard someone who's there. But because Kate, even though she's very straight backed and formal, she's not super graceful in the book. So just to have that little moment where we get to see a little oops, that was totally not graceful at all.
It's like a little tip to the book.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I love Violet, the mom. She is the heart of the show. Just
I love her.
you
Such
see
a
how
good
she loves her
matriarch.
children. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Casting is great.
Mhm.
Any more before we wrap this up? Because sometimes these are like that, where we have so much to talk about and we can't stop. Oh, not general differences. We want to go to
Final thoughts.
final thoughts. Here we are.
Okay. Book versus show. Show's better to me. I would say, like, that is the simplest, least amount of words I can say, was that the show was better. But in their individual media, they're exactly as they should be.
I know. I kind of wish that we could pick and choose different pieces of it, because I really do like how we got to understand both of their motivations, and that was pretty absent in the show.
Yeah, because we get a different motivation for Kate. Some similar motivation, but the added motivation of Edwina's not going to get this dowry if she doesn't do this. So we still have her wanting Edwina to get with somebody, but the motivations change a lot because they change the family dynamics. But yeah.
My final thoughts quickly. Out of the two, if I have to pick one, I actually like the book better, whereas in season 1 I picked the show. And I would say that for Kate and Anthony, aside from him being like really mean and trapping her in the study, I think I almost like Anthony and Kate in the book better, but I like everything else in the show better, except Lady Danbury maybe not being smart enough, because I'm like, within the show world, you did her dirty.
Yeah.
And I would say,
Go ahead.
I've only read the first half of the second book, but I would think that I would like the show better. I don't know how big the side characters are in the book, but like
they're not that big.
Penelope, Benedict, Colin, and Eloise are my favorite characters from the show. Like, they're my favorite storylines to follow. So I would have to say I pick the show. But yeah.
I think I pick the book because like it has the romance better, in my opinion. Yeah. But if you're talking about like the world building and every other part, I'd be like, absolutely show and forget the romance, because the show kind of did. In my opinion.
Yeah. I'm going to pick the book for just the romance between Kate and Anthony. We got a lot more of it. They get married at the halfway point, and then we go through their realization of how much they love each other. We know that they love each other, but the dynamics of how they realize it, where we missed that in the show. Yeah, we got all of it crammed into the last episode, and no wedding. So
yeah.
Your
brain cell on this.
So I would say, but overall, just the visual of it, the side characters of it, I just love the show.
Yeah.
But like I said, I literally can't see anybody else as Kate and Anthony anyway. So even when I'm reading the book, that's my Kate and Anthony. They're all my characters. That's Eloise. That's, the cast is now who I visually see in the book. So I'm good. I thought that the book hit the romance tropes just where it needed to be. It was spot on. I would have been a little bit more upset if I'm a romance reader and I get all of that angst and an actual love triangle between sisters reading a romance, because romance readers really want to see the story of their couple falling in love. And I think they'd have a harder time with an in-love triangle, where if you're watching Shondaland, expect it, embrace yourself. So both of them worked out for their mediums. I was very nervous for the love triangle. I was nervous for Edwina
So nervous.
when she said, "I do love him." I'm like, no. Yeah, literally.
But you brought up, I totally forgot about that scene in the book about the study situation. That's what made me hate Anthony. I was like, oh, there's no redeeming quality of this kid.
Yeah, no, that was a really bad look on him in the book. And I'm glad that they didn't do that in the show.
Yeah. Yeah, that elongated angst. Yeah, if you want that Ethel, that romance, you definitely, that's more in the book. You got more Shondaland on the show. So it's like, know what you're getting into when
I'm
you're
okay
on
with
the
elongated angst, but give me the payoff. So even if it's like a stupid little blip of like their wedding.
Yeah, I would
have gone for a montage music. I don't even hear what's in the shots. It's just music overlay.
That's what I mean. Like show
yes.
a little shot and then like show them in bed and be like, and then a cut to like them being like, are they still in bed? It's like they're newlyweds. It's like, yeah, but like the siblings want to play Pall Mall. You know, like you could keep.
Wouldn't they go off by themselves somewhere?
Like, yeah, that's what I'm like. Has that already happened? We don't get to know. Did they already have their honeymoon? Like, man,
I think the assumption is maybe
they said it was like a couple months later.
Yeah,
I don't.
Like,
I think
yeah, Daphne's baby was still around the same age.
Yeah, I don't think it was a couple months later. I think they're like, you know, let's just like have our families together again, and like, well, you know, it's Anthony's home now because he's the head of the family and he's married finally. So like, let's just have our honeymoon in like the family estate. I don't know.
Yeah.
I would not want to be around my family if I was on my honeymoon. I don't care how big that estate
100%.
is. I don't care how big that estate is. It's bad enough that everyone knows what happens on a honeymoon. I mean, not back then, because obviously Eloise didn't even know how a child was made and that it was possible outside of marriage in season 1. But it's like, no, thank you. Not in the same building, not in the same zip code.
Seriously. All right. Does anybody have any final thoughts before we wrap it up? All right. We will go ahead and say thank you for watching with us. If you want to watch the watch parties, I think I have them linked below, but if I don't, they're on my channel. Just click on my channel. We did episode 1 and 2, and then we did a review with the final episode. So 2 different ones. So check those out. I want everyone to give their outros, starting with Zara. No, we're going to go backwards this time. We're going to start with Ben and go around the other way. Go ahead, Ben.
Right.
Take it away.
Thank you. I am Ben Pick. I do Running to Write, which is a weekly video series, 7 p.m. Eastern Time, where I give questionable writing advice through running metaphors.
I'm Natalie Locke. I do flash fiction genre hopping right now, and you can find me across all platforms at least once a week.
And my name is Morgan Lee. I have a channel here on YouTube. I'm streaming every day in April, so I have a week of that left. So you can hang out with me over there.
And I'm Zara Hoffman. I'm the self-published author of 6 books, a young adult paranormal romance trilogy, and a new adult sci-fi romance trilogy. I host writing streams every Sunday at 9 a.m. Eastern here on YouTube, and I do more pop-ups now that I have time to. I am also the co-creator and co-host of the Writish podcast. And I think that's about it. My Ko-fi page is where to find everything, and I'm very happy to be included on Scripting the Book as a guest for these, because everyone else on here is like a permanent host for this show, and I'm just here for fun.
Yes. Awesome. And I am Nia, the Vixen of Fiction. You are here on my channel. I host this show with these fabulous people. I also host AuthorTubers React, which we will be doing next Saturday. And I host a Writer's Wrap-Up, which we will be doing next Saturday also. If you are on AuthorTube or on BookTube for AuthorTubers React, if you would like to join us for any of those, just hit me, shoot me a message over on Instagram. Zara is
Vixen of Fiction.
Yes, the Vixen of Fiction over on Instagram. Yes, I didn't get the stinking URL. Someone else got it. Zara is a co-host with me on AuthorTubers React, and we just have a good time talking about all things in the writing and bookish community. Check out all of my co-hosts and guest co-hosts channels. They're all linked below. Give everybody a follow. Like the video if you enjoyed this. We will be doing more in the month of May. We have The Devil Wears Prada.
I got those dates. So May 15th will be Twilight, because let's make some waves in this ocean. And then May 29th will be Devil Wears Prada. So we got 2 movies, a break from the seasons of like 8 hours. We're shortening it down to 2 hours apiece.
Yes. And then in June, we will keep you posted, but we have at least one scheduled. We will be celebrating the month that we lost dear Jane Austen with her unfinished work that has been adapted, Sanditon. So stay tuned for that, and stay tuned for future schedules. We will keep you posted on all things. Thank you so much to my co-hosts for joining me. You can, let me see. Yep, I think we got everything and we're good. So I'm going to go ahead and end. My co-host can wave. Bye-bye. Bye.
Bye.